Perfect. So today we're going to be talking about how you can turn your Giving Tuesday donations into a sustainable base of support. Before I go into that, I kind of want to introduce myself. My name is Katie. I am the Customer Engagement Manager here at NationBuilder. A little bit about me. I was originally a front-end web developer that specialized working with nonprofits, advocacy groups, and political campaigns. So naturally, I came to NationBuilder, where now I handle working with most of our customers, making sure that they have the tools and strategies they need to succeed. So naturally, I thought that this would be a great webinar for folks to join in on. I'm also joined by my colleague, Jason Meir, who I will hand it over so he can introduce himself.
Thanks, Katie. I'm Jason. I had a product here at NationBuilder. I've been a member of our product organization for about the last 5 years. And I think Katie asked me to join because one of the focuses that I've had over my years on the product team is building some of our payments and fundraising tools. So I think I have a unique perspective on what's feasible with what we've built over the life cycle of the product in the fundraising landscape, and also happy to join to share some of the new tools that we've built recently that can help automate some of your follow-up post-Giving Tuesday. So thanks for having me, Katie.
Thanks, Jason. So a few cute housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone make sure you're muted and feel free to engage in the chat. We'd love it if everyone could drop their name in there. Let us know who you are, where you're from. If you're not familiar with the chat, here it is. It should be blinking orange for you. So at any time, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in there as we go, and we'll circle back at the end. We have some time for Q&A for everyone. All right, so today what we're going to be covering is tactics for turning your Giving Tuesday progress into ongoing impact, the specific tools you'll need along the way, and why automating your strategy is going to be key. So before I do that, I want to kind of introduce NationBuilder. So if you're not familiar with us, I wanted to give a little extra context about us, what we do here, and why we wanted to give this thought leadership piece on creating lasting impact for your Giving Tuesday endeavors. So we are a software used by thousands of leaders around the world. We help power organizations, movements, you name it, tools, campaigns. So specifically, our tools for anyone to utilize a community around a cause and to make an impact. We offer a community engagement software, which has a people database, website optimized for action, communications, finances, goal tracking, all that fun stuff. So Giving Tuesday is an opportunity for building deeper, long-lasting relationships with donors, and that opportunity does not need to end when the day of giving is over. So first things first, thanking your supporters for their donation just as one, and their dedication to your cause. It will go a long way, no matter how big or small their donation is. So showing them that you value their contribution will make a lasting impact. The next key piece of showing that you value their contribution is to make sure it's personalized. You don't want it to sound like a boilerplate email that is generic and bland, but sometimes it's hard to do this at scale. So at NationBuilder, we do this through smart fields. So you can see a little image on the top right-hand corner that shows our email blast functionality that utilizes smart fields, which basically fill in their name, their donation amount, so you can add a level of personalization and send them at scale. So whatever tool you use to do this, just make sure it's personalized. You don't want your donors to feel like another number, so that's going to be a huge part of that. The next thing is segmenting your email list. Some research done by Constant Contact showed that 80% of mass emails go ignored. So keeping it relevant, knowing your audience will increase the likelihood that they will open it. But not only that, but this shows your supporters that you actually know who they are and what they're looking for. So for example, if you're going to use a smart field that has a last donation amount, I know it sounds simple, but make sure you are going to send to people that actually have donated. Also, segmenting will be important because the type of email that you would send to a first-time donor that donated on Giving Tuesday should be completely different to one of your consistent donors that just also happened to donate on Giving Tuesday. So segmentation and personalization will definitely be key in thanking your supporters. Also, in your email, make sure you let them know what their contribution actually helped you achieve. So 77% of first-time donors don't donate the next year, So make sure you're making them feel a part of your cause to help build this relationship and get them to donate again. So for example, here's an image of one of our customers' service year, whose goal is to make a year of service a common expectation and opportunity for all young Americans. So once you donate to them, they specify what that money will go to. So in this case, at the bottom, they have a little blurb about how it's helped expand opportunities so every young person can serve their country and their community. The hard truth is that people tend to be sensitive about money. I know I am myself, so I definitely get it. And by keeping them involved in the process, it actually makes them feel a part of the team and like their contribution actually matters, and this will go a long way for future donations. So now I'm gonna actually pass it over to Jason, who will talk more about how you can help your donors have more of an impact.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, so we mentioned in the last section, the drop-off that you get from donors from year to year if you don't resolicit them and get them to give again. And because of that, many nonprofits are trending towards trying to get folks who donated for the first time to become recurring donors. And research shows that on average, people who are recurring donors versus who give one time, even if they give multiple times one time, those recurring donors give up to like 40% more on average within a year, and also have a higher lifetime value over their entire relationship to your organization. So it's kind of a no-brainer to take folks who have given to you for the first time on Giving Tuesday towards cultivation and becoming sustaining donors for your organization. But the thing that's kind of interesting about this is that most people got a little freaked out about reaching out to someone too quickly, especially if they've just interacted with you for the first time. And that's actually the exact wrong approach. Donors are far more likely to repeat if you make your second ask for them to donate again within 30 to 60 days of your first ask. So don't be afraid to ask, because people will just forget, honestly, if you're not reminding them about why you connect to the programs of your nonprofit. So with NationBuilder, you'll see here an example of a customer's donation page. But whatever platform you're using, you're probably going to want to include that recurring donation option, but tailor it to your engagement strategy. So with our donation V2 pages, you can ask for one time and monthly in the same page if you'd like. But some tips to keep in mind why you might ask for recurring donations. We've recently added the ability to have recurring not just on a monthly cadence, but on an annual cadence. You might want to use that if one of the things that you provide to your members or your donors of your organization is kind of annual benefits or perks, discounted rates at your events, things like that. Consider asking them to give annually, particularly for an end-of-year campaign where that'll maximize your revenue. For certain donors, that may make more sense. But for many people, giving that one lump sum at once is not possible. And so a monthly recurring ask is actually going to be easier for folks to have an impact and more likely to land with those donors. So the thing that you always hear folks coaching about on donation pages asks is, how can I show the impact that they'll have by contributing to my organization? And with recurring, because you can say, if you're giving, let's say, $10 a month, the impact that person can have is worth $120 over the course of the year. So always make sure that you're highlighting the outsized impact that a small dollar donation given monthly can have over the course of contributing to your programs for an entire year or even beyond. One other thing that you'll notice on this particular donation page that's a little bit interesting is from one of our customers, Unite America, who they're a nonprofit organization that is trying to bridge the partisan divide in this country, and they do that through electoral reform strategies and candidate recruitment. But you'll notice that their annual campaign in 2019 was centered around this default $20.19 ask. So there's a lot of intention behind that, actually. The amount was small enough, and one of the smaller amounts, to attract attention, but also encourage people to give monthly. The interesting research on using sort of an eye-catching amount or defaulting to maybe not the minimum amount is that it actually makes people more likely to give a larger amount. It's like an anchoring effect almost. Really important though here, if you're considering using an anchoring strategy, and I'll show you a little bit later how you can set up a donation page to have this, this anchored amount, it tends to be very much of a focus in the form when you do this kind of anchoring. So if you're generally, for this particular audience, having more of an emotional appeal, it will tend to detract from that emotional appeal. So the thing that I said earlier about showing impact, pick one or the other, and diversify your tactics based on the type of donor you're reaching out to. And with NationBuilder and other tools, you're likely able to spin up many donation pages to personalize the asks to the particular segment that you're sending to. So take advantage of tools to make sure that the ask is really personalized and that the content strategy you have really drives towards the end goal that you have for that particular set of donors you're reaching out to. Then I'm going to kick it back to Katie to talk a little bit about how you can facilitate relationship building beyond the context of just asking for money, and how that leads to more sustainable relationships with your supporters.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, so as Jason mentioned, you definitely want to manage your emotional appeal to it, but also kind of choose one or more tactics. But as you all know, new supporters are going to be valuable, but it's kind of what you do with them and how you build on that new relationship that will really make an impact on your organization in the long run. So after thanking your supporters, now is the actual time to kind of cultivate this relationship. So finding out why they actually chose to donate to your cause, or if they have a personal connection to your cause or your organization, or whether or not they could be advocates for your cause in the future, is all great information to track in your CRM. At NationBuilder, we use tags to keep track of these data points, so you can filter to find these, and you can communicate based on that and use segmentation for that in your email list. But whether or not you use NationBuilder doesn't matter. I think that definitely at least reaching out, using that 30 to 60 day period to kind of gather that next ask for one, and then two, actually kind of ask them why they're so interested in your cause. I think that'll be a great way and great strategy to actually do that. So, you definitely want to be key to meeting them where they're at. If they have donated the second time, definitely try and get in and see if they're interested in helping in the future. Maybe they'd like to become a volunteer. Maybe they would like to use recruitment strategies to gain other people. Definitely try and diversify your tactics to actually be more than just donors and see if they're actually interested in that. But the true pro tip here is to make sure that you are following up with them consistently. So trust me, I know how easy it is to get wrapped up in a new initiative, especially with end of year and all that stuff, but you don't want to forget about these people. So whether or not you have reached out once, just make sure you keep them involved in your organization so that your interactions don't stop after they've donated. You don't want them to feel like another number. So just definitely following up consistently and making sure that you hear them, you're here for them. If they need anything, that'll go a long way. The next pro tip that I think is really helpful is just always constantly be reviewing, iterating, and improving on your strategy. This will also be key for your growth. One way you can make your supporters feel involved and to kind of kill two birds with one stone is to create a feedback page or a survey page asking them for insights or questions to get their feedback. So this will, one, give you some insight into who is actually willing and wants to give you feedback. Two, it'll actually help to know what their responses are. Then you can make sure you actually apply that feedback to your next year's strategy to keep the feedback loop strong. You can also use and send this information in an email letting them know, hey, we did actually apply that strategy. And this will make them in return feel like you're hearing them, you're here with them, they're one with your organization once again. But you don't want to just send it out to the supporters whose feedback you did actually implement, but to anyone that did actually give a response so that they know that you are truly listening. So next, it's been definitely proven that word of mouth is one of the most effective strategies that you can have. 84% of people trust friend referrals over any other type of marketing. I know for a fact that if Jason were to recommend something to me, I'm probably going to take that more to heart than if I just saw something online. So I definitely think that is something that you should implement into your strategy as well. So therefore, creating a peer-to-peer strategy will actually help your organization grow as a whole. So one quick win that you can do if you are using NationBuilder or any other platform, if they have a social share prompt that once they act on your page, make sure you're actually using that. This will actually allow them to share to their network. So here's an example underneath that first bullet point of what ours actually looks like. So once they've taken an action, they will be able to prompt with some pre-written copy that you've kind of determined and you and your organization has set forth. so they can actually share it directly to their social media accounts. Great quick win, and also just will get the word out there as a whole. Now, for creating a more in-depth peer-to-peer strategy, you'll want to start by finding key supporters who are actively engaging with you and tend to respond to your calls of action. If you're a NationBuilder customer, a pro tip is to filter by people that have high social capital points, which is basically a fancy way of saying someone that tends to take a lot of action with your organization. Then you can invite them to create a personal fundraising page. You can see a great example on the left, where they can voice their connection to your cause and use their unique point of view to help guide their outreach to friends and family. Plus, it gives them a space to track their progress on an individual level, which will give them a sense of ownership over the goal. So this example on the left is by one of our customers, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, who is a great example of this, where they have the dollars raised, whether or not they hit the goal, miles hiked, etc. And then you have the option to share with your networks as well. It's definitely going to be a great strategy. I'd highly recommend using it. And then once you have people tap into their networks, it will be important to actually acknowledge these folks to use automation so that you make sure that no one's actually falling through the cracks, especially since you've worked so hard for your organization. You want to thank anyone that supported on their behalf. So Jason will talk more about how you can actually do this.
Yeah, I think we've thrown a bunch of potential tactics at y'all over the last couple of slides. And one reality that I know of, both my parents run nonprofits, and you always have really limited staff time to work on employing these different tactics. So having an effective peer-to-peer strategy, or any of these sort of strategies, implies that your staff's really prioritizing cultivating relationships with your most engaged folks that are likely to have the biggest impact. Like, that's how you succeed, is people that your people power, you're spending time cultivating those relationships. And what we talk about with personalizing emails and doing these kind of outreach strategies at scale is that there's no way that email can ever replace the meaningful one-to-one interactions you have with your most ardent supporters. It's just like not possible. But doing what you can to identify folks that are going to be those ardent supporters for you through more personalized, scaled outreach is the best strategy you can take, so that you can carve out more time to build those relationships in person by bringing your most ardent advocates to your events to come see directly on the ground the programs that you're doing and the beneficiaries of those programs. So really, when we think about building automation into NationBuilder, it's all about helping you choose what to focus on and freeing up your time to like do this offline organizing. It's kind of interesting, right? Software really facilitating offline. It's kind of an interesting quandary to think about. But for many products that gather engagement history and all the ways that people are participating with you, you'll have a comprehensive history of how your supporters have participated with you in the past. And Katie's talked about some of the example strategies you might use where folks have told you what they care about, or they've given multiple times over different campaigns where they've actually showed up to support you. And you should be leveraging all of that information over time to deliver a more tailored ask to them when you do use automation. So with tools like NationBuilder, you're able to develop a more complete picture and put your people at the center of your outreach, because you've pulled the data into such a place where you can actually scale your outreach in a personal way. And like I said before, focus on identifying the ones that continue to engage with you and need that special attention to continue to be more effective in distributing leadership to them and getting them to raise money for you. So I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about our newest release that's going to help with some of this automation work. So we recently rolled out a new feature called Workflows. And what's possible with workflows is for you to create a tailored list of supporters based on all of this previous engagement history, and create a series of automated follow-up communications to encourage them to take a next action. So from here, I'm going to just leverage a couple of the potential strategies that we talked about through the webinar, and talk about how you could use a tool like NationBuilder to create an ask to get first-time Giving Tuesday donors to become sustaining donors of your organization. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Make sure I don't share the wrong one. There we go. Awesome. So the first step in any campaign like this, in whatever tool you're using, is going to be to identify the segment of people that you're going to want to reach out to. So again, we wanted to take advantage of as many data points as possible to make this really relevant. So I'm going to start using NationBuilder's filter tool. This is the way that you break down your universe of supporters in NationBuilder. So I'm going to look for first donated on Giving Tuesday. Again, remember, we want to differentiate our outreach to people who are first-time donors versus people who maybe happen to give on Giving Tuesday, but have supported us previously. So this is really targeted at the newest supporters. And we've talked about collecting, using surveys or feedback to collect interest areas that people have in your programs. So I'm doing this from the perspective of an animal rights organization who perhaps has programs related to dogs that they're focused on rescuing. So these are folks who have identified they're interested in those specific programs, and we'll see how that feeds into the outreach that we build a little bit later. And then finally, because I want to make sure that my next ask is relevant in terms of the amount that they've previously given, I'm going to specifically target my outreach to folks who gave between $10 and $20 on Giving Tuesday. All right, so if I run that filter, that will then narrow down my list to 7 folks who meet this criteria. Okay, cool. So to prepare to send them my outreach, I'm going to create a list with those 7 users, and they're being added. And we can now use that when we set up our automation a little bit later. So next, I'm going to make sure that we actually have a donation page that's going to allow us to make this monthly recurring ask of these one-time donors from Giving Tuesday. So I'll create the page and I'll select this donation V2 page type. I'm in the website section of NationBuilder, but in whatever tool you're using, there will likely be a way to create a donation page. So I'll create the page here. And specifically, we talked earlier about amplifying the ask and anchoring people to the non-minimum ask on the page. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit of math on the fly, which is, so monthly recurring. And I want to accept multiple amounts. And so I'm going to do 10 times the minimum ask, which was 100, and then up to $20. So we're gonna shoot for, oh no, sorry, this is for monthly. So 10, 20, I was trying to do an annual ask, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And I'm going to anchor folks using the highlighted donation amount to that $20 amount. Again, you should experiment with how this works with your particular donors, but the research shows that the average donation amount will increase if you anchor to something greater than the minimum. Awesome. So really basic page. You would probably want to add more about your programs, add a picture, but you can see here that we've now defaulted to that $20 ask in the form. So now I'm going to use this page that I've created to set up a 3-step email campaign to those one-time donors from Giving Tuesday to introduce them to our programs about dogs, and then eventually build towards a recurring donation ask at the end. So notice here in the Workflows tab, we've created an automation. I've already gone ahead and pre-built some of this just for expediency's sake. So I'm going to switch this now to the list that I just created. Oh, I guess I have to refresh. My dog end of year campaign. You'll see those 7 people that are now showing up on it. So with my first email, I'm just going to introduce our programs. So I'll go ahead and show you how to edit that email. And you'll notice here, thanks for your recent donation of blank. And this is where you'll use smart fields to making this feel like it's more personalized. So adding last donation amount And you see, you just drop it right in there, and that will then populate with whatever the amount of their last donation is, regardless of who they are. And again, really this time you're just acknowledging in this particular strategy, you're just thanking them and encouraging them to hear more about your programs. Cool, so that's been created. I can go back to my automation. And you'll notice here I've built in a 5-day wait period. And in this, I'm really aiming for the next ask to be made in that 30 to 60-day window that we talked about after Giving Tuesday. So I'm assuming I'm sending this out in a couple of weeks. So I'm going to wait 5 days and then send them another email about the impact of our dog programs. So we don't need to dive into too much detail. Again, like I showed you how to create an email. Basically, you probably, if you've used NationBuilder before, know how to do that. But what I am going to demonstrate is how easy it is to continue to set up these series. So I'm going to wait 5 days before sending my final email, which is going to be my call to action. And this is going to be where we actually ask them to donate. Oh, call to action number 2. Sure, why not? And from here, again, not a copywriter. Y'all will probably be much less brief in your content. And let me grab my link. All right. Awesome. So now you see I've got this queued up to send to those initial 7 folks 2 introductory emails about our programs with 5-day gaps until building to an ask to continue to sustain those programs at the end. This is now available to all of our customers in the workflows section on our newest plans, and you'll be able to see results for each of these emails after you send them out. And there's really kind of a set it and forget it approach. You'll just run this, and then each email will go out without any additional intervention on your part. So it really allows you to measure how effective you've been, who's been actually engaging with each of those steps, and finally, who ends up donating on the page that you've linked through that last email. So Katie, if you'll go ahead and share again, and we can talk a little bit more about the workflows feature and what we're building towards there. So I mentioned this level of functionality is already available to all of our customers on our newest plans, but we're hard at work for a couple of new pieces of functionality that are coming at the top of 2020, including the ability to have more dynamic sources for your automation. So you noticed how I built a static list. One thing we're really excited about is building automatic drip functionality out of the pages on your website. So you may imagine like someone signing your petition, you want to send them a series of emails welcoming them, building towards a call to action. You'll be able to start with several of our page types as a dynamic source for an automation. Another thing that we've heard a lot about is that folks maybe want to exclude individuals who have already been VIPs for the organization before they get an automation. So like, just because one of your highest dollar donors signs a petition doesn't mean they should get the same monthly recurring donation ask as everybody else. So we're adding the ability to automatically exclude some of your most engaged supporters from automations when you set them up. So generally, for those who are ardent followers of NationBuilder, I know I'm seeing Lee's name. I see Lee all over our Facebook group. So he probably already knows this, but for those of you who are also existing customers, we've recently launched our product portal where you can track some of these new developments that are currently in work and are planned, and also sign up to test them along with vote on other things that are under consideration. So my team, the product organization, we We read all of the feedback that comes in through this portal. On Friday afternoons, it's our winding down at the end of the week fun time. And yeah, it's a great place to continue to stay current on what we're developing, and also just feel heard by the team building the thing. I think that's it from me, Katie, and happy to steer it back to you to talk more about wrapping up the strategies on your post-Giving Tuesday outreach.
Thanks, Jason. That was great. So just kind of wrapping things up for the whole webinar. What are the tools that you need to carry out these post-Giving Tuesday strategies, and what does that look like? So those are going to be an action-driven website. I definitely think that this is one of the things that's non-negotiable. You need to make sure your website is a place where supporters go to get a clear understanding of what you need them to do. In this case, may have your main call to action be donations. But you need to make sure that's clearly communicated on your website and make it an easy ask to take, using some of those tips that Jason gave you about anchoring. That does tend to be something that gives you a higher amount than the minimum. You also definitely need to have your supporter data consolidated if you do want to scale your efforts. Keeping track of all their information you're collecting on spreadsheets can get tough. So whether it's with NationBuilder or somewhere else, just make sure that you have one cohesive database so that you can actually be able to track all this information and use some of the strategies that I mentioned before about how they want to be communicated with, why they're interested in your cause, and things like that. Next, if I haven't said it enough, segmentation will be key. You definitely don't want to make sure your supporters, old or new, feel like they're just another number and they're just there for money. Making sure you're building those relationships and making sure you have a plan for segmentation so that they will open your emails, that they know that when you send them an email, it is going to be something that they're interested in, and that there is generally a call to action and or just you reaching out to show your support of them supporting you. Next things, mass communication tool, whether it's email or texting, it's just going to make it easier to stay in touch with your supporters, keep them up to date with your work, how they're helping. They want to hear from you beyond Giving Tuesday. So if they have donated, they're definitely interested in you. So making sure they're personalized, making sure you're segmenting will be key for that communication. Last but certainly not least, definitely making sure that you have a fundraising platform with payment processing. This will be key to remove any barriers for donation, because all of your efforts leading up to Giving Tuesday are important. So make sure that it's not complicated, make sure that it's easy, and that you aren't actually missing out on any of those donations. Oops. Okay, great. Next, I really just want to make sure that you have some additional resources. We'll definitely follow up with an email after the recording with all of these. But here is a free fundraising course that we have on nationbuilder.com, nationbuilder.com/courses. We have some great thought leadership pieces on effective fundraisers and peer-to-peer fundraising strategies, things that we found. We also have a recording of our previous webinar, Key Tactics in Surpassing Your Fundraising Goals, which I think will be really helpful for everyone on this call to kind of get more extra resources so that you can kind of dive in, find what works for you and what doesn't, what maybe actually you can implement right away. And last but certainly not least, here's just a little bit of a shameless plug that we have here for our general demos, our NationBuilder. If you do want to start a trial, feel free to go here. And feel free to follow us on Facebook, Twitter. As we mentioned, Lee is active in the Facebook group. It's a great community for everyone in our that is using NationBuilder to talk to each other, get to know one another. So we would be happy to have you in there. I'm also an active member in there, so feel free to introduce yourself and say hello to me. Now, to kind of wrap up, are there any questions? We'd love if you put it in the chat. Feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like. Happy to take any and all questions that you may have. Certainly don't feel shy. We don't bite, I promise. Is is there a recording that we can share with our team? Yeah, absolutely. I am recording this right now. So anybody that has RSVP'd will automatically get the recording. We'll send that with our follow-up email. So you can share it with your team from there on out. But yeah, absolutely, the recording will be available for everyone. What's the best way to implement these strategies on social media? Great question. I definitely think the social share prompt will kind of already automatically share with your networks. I definitely think that, kind of using something like a text keyword almost to drive people to your donation page, drive them back to your website to kind of facilitate that action, get them to actually sign up. So you are getting their email address, you are pulling all of their information. If you are just engaging with them on social media, maybe you haven't actually had that before. I think that will be a great way to actually implement that. Kind of like kind of something that Jason mentioned, letting them know new ways that you are doing things. So for instance, as I mentioned previously, definitely keep them involved of what their contribution will actually do, why they actually want to make an impact with your organization, and how they can do that by either donating, signing a petition, whatever the cost may be.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I would say about that is that you have to think about the medium, right? Social media is a place where generally the social media platforms are trying to monetize the attention of your supporters. So you have to think about how you can make asks there that are going to help deepen the relationship you have with those folks. So whether that's linking back to surveys or things that show that you care and want to learn more about how they connect to your organization. There's also a number of tools, both in our extended ecosystem and then just generally tools for engaging with folks on Facebook that allow you to collect more information to actually own that supporter relationship a little bit more directly. Whereas if you don't take the relationship off Facebook, that tends to be where the relationship stays. So thinking about ways of keeping that relationship and leveraging it off of social media is a good general strategy to think about in this case.
Thanks, Jason. Farida, it looks like you had a comment about the automations functionality. I can definitely connect with you offline about that. So feel free to email me directly, kangela@nationbuilder.com. Goes for everyone on the call. Feel free to email me. Happy to answer any questions that you may have. I'll put it in the chat as well, so that everyone has it there as well. We do have some extra time, so if there are any other questions, again, feel free to unmute, put them in the chat. Happy to hear them. Okay. All right. Doesn't seem like anyone is pressing the unmute button or dying to put something in the chat. So I think that's a wrap for today. Again, we will be sending a recording out. So feel free to check your emails later today. You'll get that, share them with your team, and we hope to see everyone soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.